If a Taiwan Strait crisis were to arise again, would the PLA have the capability to deter U.S. military intervention? Would China remain as subdued as it was back then? The Taiwan Strait crisis at the end of the last century remains an enduring source of anger and pain in the hearts of countless Chinese people. The reason is simple: the United States was simply too arrogant in that era, committing numerous barbaric and inexplicable acts in the early 1990s. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States entered its most dominant era. Having lost its greatest rival, it became the sole superpower, unfettered by any constraints, leveraging the world's most formidable military might. America rampaged across continents and oceans as the world's preeminent naval force. The U.S. Navy plundered resources globally, exploiting other nations to cement America's hegemony. At that time, the United States acted with impunity, constantly provoking wars worldwide. The most notorious examples were the Gulf War and Operation Golden Canyon. Through these two conflicts, the United States demonstrated to the world the essence of modern information warfare: aircraft carriers, early warning aircraft, electronic warfare aircraft, and precision-guided weapons. These advanced systems integrated the previously disjointed land, sea, and air forces, unleashing capabilities that stunned the entire globe. The result was the Gulf War concluding in a mere 42 days. Amidst the stunned silence of the international community, some military strategists even remarked that by the first day, indeed the first hour of the Gulf War, the outcome had already been decided. Most observers never imagined that Iraq, boasting a million-strong army and dubbed the Middle East's steel torrent, would suffer such a crushing defeat. This conflict jolted China awake, stinging it into realization. Military modernization through scientific advancement and enhancing combat effectiveness through military research was the primary development model for the future. Yet what few anticipated was how swiftly the challenges would arise. Before long, mere years after the Gulf War, the arrogant United States deployed its naval fleet to our doorstep. First came the 1994 standoff in the Yellow Sea, where the overbearing U.S. forced its way into Chinese waters. To intimidate our military, its arrogance reached unprecedented heights, while simultaneously alerting many nations to the urgency of the international situation. Though the Yellow Sea standoff ultimately concluded without major incident, it made us understand, without sufficient strength in our hands, the Western world, led by the United States, would inevitably return time and again, employing every underhanded tactic to disrupt China's peaceful and stable development environment. After all, this is their habitual modus operandi. Simultaneously, the Yellow Sea standoff confrontation also provided China with a crucial insight. While nuclear submarines can deliver unique strategic effects, possessing them alone is far from sufficient. Surface fleets must possess adequate strength to form a coordinated force, capable of striking fear into the hearts of adversaries. Yet 2 years later, the undeterred United States returned once more, this time extending its claws toward the more critical Taiwan Strait region. On May 22, 1995, the U.S. State Department spokesperson issued a series of outrageous statements. The subsequent chain of events in the Taiwan Strait made countless Chinese citizens acutely aware of the imperative to strengthen the military through technological advancement. If the Taiwan Strait crisis were to recur years later, would our military, now equipped with advanced weaponry after years of development, possess the capability to deter U.S. intervention? When the Taiwan Strait crisis reached its most critical and urgent phase in 1996, China decided to conduct multiple joint military exercises involving all three branches of the armed forces, to demonstrate to the world its resolve to safeguard national integrity and unity. At that time, our military spared no effort in these exercises, deploying every weapon and piece of equipment available. Yet viewed from today's perspective, the 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis was undeniably a tragic chapter. According to numerous military scholars, the gap between our military's weaponry and that of the U.S. forces at the time was at least 30 years. In other words, from the perspective of the U.S. military in the late 1990s, our weaponry was essentially at the level of the Vietnam War era. This represented a massive disadvantage in terms of weaponry. For instance, China's strongest mainstay fighter jet at the time, the J-8 series, was actually only a third-generation aircraft. Consider this: just 1 year after the Taiwan Strait crisis in 1997, the U.S. fifth-generation fighter, the F-22, had already completed its maiden flight. This represents a staggering generational gap. As the saying goes, it takes 10 years to build an army, 30 years to build an air force, and 100 years to build a navy. If this gap is evident in the Air Force, the disparity in naval capabilities is even more profound. At the time, our most advanced surface warship, the Type 051 destroyer, was widely regarded as little more than an artillery destroyer retrofitted with missile launch systems. A long road lay ahead before achieving true integrated weaponry. To compensate for this surface firepower disadvantage, our military took an extraordinary step, mounting land artillery onto ships to salvage whatever advantage possible. This move was undeniably tragic, yet it also reflected our utter helplessness at the time. Beyond this, however, another issue loomed as potentially fatal: the satellite system. At that time, the US GPS system was dominant, the earliest developed and largest in scale. This meant that whenever the US chose, it could shut down GPS at any moment, delivering a strategically devastating blow. This capability was already proven during the Gulf War. It can be said that by 1996, China's naval and air forces faced an enormous disadvantage compared to the US. No wonder this remains a source of enduring pain for many Chinese people. It was truly infuriating. Fortunately, our second artillery force at the time, later renamed the Rocket Force, along with our submarine fleet led by nuclear submarines, had begun to steadily rise to prominence through nuclear strategic threats like the Dongfeng series. The US was forced to abandon further plans, allowing the Taiwan Strait crisis to be resolved without major incident. When recalling this event, many still feel a lingering unease. It couldn't be helped. The gap back then was simply too vast. Many also ponder, had we not possessed that spirit of facing death without fear, had we retreated even slightly, would the outcome have been entirely different? Would the audacious Americans have forcibly established military presence on the island? This question has indeed provoked deep reflection. It raises another critical point. If the Taiwan Strait crisis were to occur again now, could our military today withstand US intervention? Should the Taiwan Strait crisis resurface, would our forces have the capability to block American involvement? The current military posture far exceeds all expectations. Judging by present developments, after years of steady accumulation and breakthroughs, our armed forces, particularly naval and air assets, have long entered the world's elite ranks. We now possess sufficient strength to establish home field advantage in our near seas, with future expansion steadily extending into the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and major island chains. Take China's Type 055 destroyer, for instance. Even the self-assured Western world, when confronted with this maritime behemoth boasting a displacement of 12,000 tons and a staggering triple-digit number of vertical launch cells, must acknowledge it as the world's most advanced destroyer today, surpassing even America's Zumwalt and Arleigh classes. Some may now question, doesn't the US currently operate 11 nuclear-powered carrier strike groups? While China's naval development has surged in recent years, ranking second globally in tonnage, a gap remains. This touches upon a strategic question. The US military's strategic orientation is to secure interests worldwide. Its 11 carrier strike groups cannot all be deployed in the Asia-Pacific region. Furthermore, many US carriers spend extended periods docked in naval bases, undergoing repairs or maintenance, nor can they deploy all simultaneously. Even with America's massive military budget, such a deployment would be unsustainable. Therefore, based on historical data and experience, the maximum number of carrier strike groups the US can deploy in the Asia-Pacific region is unlikely to exceed 3. More commonly, only 1 is present at any given time. Take, for example, the notorious US 7th Fleet, which has repeatedly demonstrated its ambitions. It operates as a single carrier strike group worldwide. Consider this: China's 3 major fleets, north, east, and south. The South China Sea Fleet alone already possesses 2 carrier strike groups. The reason is clear: this allows simultaneous coverage of the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, carrying significant strategic importance. Moreover, the coordination of 2 carriers can achieve a qualitative leap in near-sea operations. Our forces hold the home field advantage. In reality, the strategic value of nuclear-powered carriers is already limited. Furthermore, the rocket force alone poses a substantial threat to US forces. Take, for example, the Dongfeng family's newest flagship, the DF-17 hypersonic missile. Its terminal velocity is assessed by global military experts as having no effective countermeasures for the next decade. Then there's the so-called carrier killer, the DF-1D and Guam Express DF-6. Beyond these, the YJ-1 anti-ship missile has recently garnered substantial international attention. Its formidable operational range has left US carrier strike groups on edge. These developments collectively demonstrate that China's naval and air forces have undergone a transformative leap forward and continue to evolve. Moreover, air power now features a tiered operational structure combining the J-20 and J-16 as dual mainstay fighters, alongside the J-16D electronic warfare aircraft, the KJ series of early warning aircraft, and even the medium-range Liaoning aircraft combat group, comprising the twin-tail Star Unmanned bomber and the Attackshi drone. All this demonstrates that our military has long since left behind the era of mounting land artillery onto ships. The National Army must bolster its defenses to keep out the wolves, tigers, and leopards.